You're listening to The Morning Buzz.
The Morning Buzz.
To the Morning Buzz.
The Morning Buzz on 90.3. 90.3.
90.3.
90.3 WMSC.
WMSC.
WMSC Upper Montclair.
Upper Montclair, New Jersey.
Say hello to the big, beautiful world. This is 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair with a Monday Morning Buzz. And before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out and a huge thank you to everybody who tuned in to our 54-hour birthday / vinyl-thon extravaganza that we had over this weekend. It's not often that the station's birthday lines up perfectly with Vinyl-thon, and despite everything going on in the world, we were able to get into studio to give you some live content after a bit of a drought going on for the past year. We've had a lack of live shows going on, with the exceptions of the few news shows that we have and some other programs. But we are live today, live on WMSC Radio and live on Facebook. I am your host, Kyle Pepitone, joined today with
Ryan Breyta from the studio.
That's right. We are back in studio, and we have our newscaster here, Thomas Tartar. Thomas, what is going on in the world today?
A lot of things, Kyle, but we're going to start off with, first, according to News 12 New Jersey, today, all Americans 16 years and older will be able to schedule an appointment to get the COVID-19 vaccine. This is 2 weeks ahead of schedule, as President Biden initially said that the date would be in the beginning of May. Governor Phil Murphy says that he is confident that 70% of New Jersey's population will be vaccinated by the end of June. Now, I know I got my email today saying that I'm eligible, so I will definitely look at that. And I would say Twitter is definitely a good place to, not Twitter, but I use that site, like the Vax updates.
Right.
They have all the open appointments.
Right. Yeah. I believe Lewis was telling us about those when he was looking for an appointment for him a few weeks ago.
And also definitely the NJ.gov health website.
Right.
Moving on now, according to News 12 New Jersey, Dr. Anthony Fauci said that the pause on the single-dose New Brunswick-based and yes, Central Jersey does exist. Johnson & Johnson vaccine could be lifted by next week. The single-dose shot was halted from production and use due to a rare blood clot reported after some got the shot. Dr. Fauci says he will let the CDC and the FDA have final say on whether the pause on the single-dose vaccine should be lifted. Finally, according to AP News, it has now been found out that the former Indiana FedEx employee who shot up the Indianapolis FedEx obtained the rifles he used legally, thus further sparking a debate on the issue of gun control. The full details on the weapons make and model and purchase will not be disclosed until after the full investigation has been completed. Finally, your weather in Montclair is a high of 66 degrees and a low of 46 degrees. Now back to the studio for sports and other stuff.
Thank you, Thomas. Well, unfortunately, Matt Boucher was not able to join us today for the Sportscast, and I know I am not qualified enough to give anything related to sports. Ryan, can you fill us in, or should we just move on?
Well, I did not do my research on sports today. However, I am a huge Mets fan, and the Mets did win yesterday by a score of 2-1. Marcus Stroman pitched extremely well for the Mets, pitching 8 solid innings, and that is your sports cap today, Kyle.
All right, I'll take it. So, in that case, we'll move right on into the stories that we have today. So, as Thomas mentioned before, we have stuff relating to COVID and the vaccine. Obviously, Dr. Anthony Fauci said that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine can come off of hiatus sometime between this week and next week after the rare blood clots that occurred in a few people who got the vaccine. Now, as of right now, it's still under speculation if the blood clots are related to the vaccines, because it did happen in a small number of people who got it. If I can find the exact stat, I will be able to tell you. But it was a very, small number as opposed to what it usually is. And I can't seem to find it right now, but it was like, I don't want to give false information, but it was like 6 people, I think, out of like 7 million who got it. Something around there. It was?
Yes, 6 people, 6 women.
Right. Yes. It was only in women ages 18 to 48, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's still under speculation whether that the vaccine was the cause of that. But on the brighter side, half of all the adults in the United States have received at least one dose of the vaccine. So almost 130 million, or 50.4% of adults in the United States, have gotten at least one shot of a COVID vaccine approved for distribution, and around 84 million, or 32.5% of adults, have been vaccinated completely, which is a pretty good number. We're slowly, or quickly at this point, rising up the ranks.
Right.
The country's vaccination rate is 61.6 vaccines per every 100 people, which falls just short of countries such as the United Arab Emirates, Chile, and the United Kingdom that have rates of 62 vaccines per 100 people. In addition, willingness to get the vaccine has also risen in general. In January, the percentage was 67% of Americans expressed they were willing to get the vaccine, and that number has since risen to 75%. So, other than the Johnson & Johnson vaccine hiatus, pretty good news all around. More people are getting vaccinated, more people are willing to get vaccinated, and we're at a steady rate of people getting vaccinated. What do you guys think?
It's very historic what this administration, the Biden administration, has done regarding vaccines. I saw a New York Times report today saying experts said that this wasn't even thought of, that this could happen. So it is great to see that people are getting vaccinated and that the country is going back to some type of normalcy,
Right.
Outdoor events have been lifted, like the number of things going up, and there's even more research saying outdoor events could slow the spread. So that's great. And the more people that get vaccinated, the better. It's good that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine should be back next week or in this week or so, because if the vaccines were slowed down, the virus could spread. And the more the virus spreads without people getting vaccinated, it could be worse for people in the long run. So it's definitely encouraging seeing what's happening. And it's great to be alive right now. It's a new sense of energy in America, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we're finally getting out of this. We're starting to get back to something after over a year of this. And granted, it's been a lot more lenient these past few months than it was at the very start, but we're still not pre-2020 normal yet. And I think with the vaccine, we can slowly get there, or we can get there very soon. Like we mentioned a few weeks ago, a lot of people are very hopeful that this will be over before the start of 2022. And looking at these numbers, we're not even halfway through 2021 yet. We're 3.5 months in somehow, and I'm still trying to process that. Time still has not regained any sort of meaning for me.
Oh, no.
But we're not even halfway through the year yet, and we already have 50% of all adults in America who are vaccinated. And if those numbers keep climbing, especially the willingness to get vaccinated, then I think I'm inclined to believe with them that this could be back to some sense of normalcy before 2022.
I was going to address that. I don't feel that even after we get to 70% of the population vaccinated, because I think that's the threshold needed to get back to quote unquote normal.
Yeah, that's like when herd immunity kicks in, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah,
anyway,
something like that.
I was talking about this with one of my coworkers, and I kind of agreed with her when she said that basically we will never really go back to March 2020, because she compared it to post 9/11 pretty much. They had all these restrictions afterwards, with airport security and that kind of thing. So could be the same.
Well, the thing that's going to be obviously lifestyles, I think will change. I think more people are going to be doing remote work. I would not be surprised if some of us will be on Zoom next year while some of us in the studio, like in the September, like the way we're doing it right now. Right. And also, like, in regards to like flying and stuff, like vaccination, I think proof of vaccination rates are going to happen more on airplanes. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it'll be like a little adjustment at first and people are still going to be nervous, but the majority of the thing is we're going to get back to some type of normalcy where we can see our loved ones again and our old, I saw my Aunt Arlene the first time without a mask last week because I was fully vaccinated and so was she. So I think that aspect will change, but I think life will continue to adjust to what has happened over the past year. Like one of the biggest things I took away, like when we used to have birthday parties, people used to blow on a birthday cake. What was going on there? Like think about it. You're blowing like oh man.
Yeah, there are definitely going to be some things that are going to be different. Like we're going to look at some things in a different way. Like you said, blowing on birthday cakes, but our producer behind the scenes just wrote this, and I'm inclined to agree with her. I think this is just going to become, it's only a matter of time before this becomes like the flu. Like, right. Yeah, it's not great that you got it, but now we have the medicine where it's not as big of a deal as it first was, right. Just like the flu. This is basically if you break it down enough, this is just a repeat of the flu pandemic that happened all those years ago, roughly 100 years ago, I think, like almost not to the date, but like to the year. I think it was like the 1920s, but
18 maybe, probably.
Yeah, something like that. But it was, everybody was nervous about it because it was a new disease. Nobody knew what it was. And eventually it just came part of a normal life. It just, hey, we know it's not ever going to go away because that's not how viruses or diseases work. But now we have medicine to combat it, much more effective than we did when it first hit. And I think it's very interesting because something I go back to with the vaccine is that vaccine took 4 years to develop from the time the first wave hit. And this one only took less than a year. So it's very interesting to see like how medicine and technology can advance in just a short period of time, depending on how short you consider 100 or so years.
Yeah, it's just technology always like evolves, and thank God for technology, because if it wasn't for that, and research, then we wouldn't probably be here. We wouldn't be able to have 3-4 vaccines that are able to be used. But things are looking up. But even with the vaccines coming out, cases are still increasing. I know, Kyle, you had a story about that in COVID in New Jersey.
Yes. So although more and more people are getting vaccinated, there's still transmissions going on, not as high as they were at the start, but still they are happening. In New Jersey itself, Governor Phil Murphy recently tweeted the most recent numbers, which include 13 deaths and 2,765 new cases of COVID. But alongside this, he also tweeted that the eligibility for New Jersey residents to get vaccinated is going to broaden. So now, anybody, quote, anyone 16 or older who lives, works, or studies in New Jersey, end quote, is able to get vaccinated. So the eligibility has broadened. So now a larger group of people could get vaccinated. And currently in New Jersey, 2,476,998 New Jersey adults have been fully vaccinated, and 3,777,441 have received at least one dose. And also, the transmission rate is slowing. So last week we had a transmission rate of 1.07, which meant it was higher than normal. But this week it dropped down to 0.91, meaning it's slowing down. So yes, it's unfortunate that we are still getting cases and deaths, but according to the data, the transmission rate of this disease is slowing down and is much less than it was a year ago.
You love to see it. You know, it's New Jersey was obviously one of the most impacted states, you know, along with New York, California, you know, states like that. And so it is nice that the vaccines are fully available for people 16 and older. And also love how whoever studies in New Jersey will be able to get a vaccine. So, you know, college students who come to Montclair who are like from Texas, for example. I know there's a lot of people who are travel from Texas, California to come to Montclair, they'll be able to get vaccinated, which is awesome. And especially like going back to Montclair issues, Montclair sent out over the weekend that they will be transporting people to get vaccinations, which is awesome. And we could debate whether that is too early or too late or, you know, just the right time that they announced that. But I do think the efforts for vaccinations are increasing, and it's like I said before, it's great to see. And it's great to see that people are willing to get vaccinated too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely also important to mention that the vaccine doesn't necessarily prevent COVID,
Right.
but it can keep you from getting hospitalized or getting it more. The vaccine can help you get, if you get COVID, the vaccine can help lessen the symptoms, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry
Right.
about that. Words are hard, but it's important to know that the vaccine doesn't provide 100% coverage against COVID yet, but it can help lessen the symptoms and make them less severe than somebody who did not receive the vaccine.
Right, because I know someone, you know, already who was fully vaccinated and tested positive. He was asymptomatic. However, you know, it's still scary. The fact is like, oh, you could still test positive for this, which some people don't really understand. You know what I mean? I know a
Yeah.
few people that are like, oh, I'm fully vaccinated. I can do whatever I want, you know, and then they go to Miami and then.
I mean, that's the one thing I don't really understand about
Right.
this, because if you look up like the dictionary definition of a vaccine, I believe the exact words are to prevent getting a disease. A substance, and this is from the dictionary that you type in when you go on Google, but it's quoted: a substance used to simulate the product of antibodies to provide immunity against one or several diseases. Prepared from the causative agent of the disease, its products of a synthetic substitute treated to act as an antigen without inducing the disease. So the definition of a vaccine, more or less, is to prevent the disease. And I feel like that's the one thing I don't get from this. And I said that before, but it's a vaccine, but you still have to follow all the regulations as somebody who didn't get the vaccine. So I'm all for the vaccine. Like, I'm glad to see that the numbers are going up, but I don't fully understand it, if that makes sense.
No, it's totally understandable. I think that's why there's a lot of skepticism as well, especially with the people who aren't taking the vaccines. The majority of people who aren't taking the vaccine are, you know, it's white men 55 and older. That's the people who are not taking the vaccine, and that's science, is research. But it's definitely not helpful that, you know, people are still getting like testing positive after the vaccine. And obviously it's new science, right? It's new. It's new. No one knows what is going on, to be completely fair. You know what I mean? And our producer just said the CDC has guidelines for people with the vaccine. Obviously, if we're fully vaccinated, we can meet in person, no mask.
Right.
But obviously, the risk is still there if you meet up with somebody who has not gotten the vaccination, because you don't know where they've been, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just an ending life cycle until we reach that herd immunity, like Thomas said before. I don't know if
Right.
Thomas has anything if you want to add anything about that.
70% it was.
Right.
Yeah, I had a question for you guys. I don't know if you guys know, but I was looking into this, but I can't really find much. Do you have to be a resident of the county to get the vaccine? Because some counties are like saying, oh, you have to be like a resident of this county to be able to go here.
I don't.
Yeah, not that I know of. I mean, from what I read, I mean, if it's anybody who lives, works, or studies here, so I guess like, and this could be totally wrong. I have no bearing in politics, health, or anything, but I'm reading into this as if somebody lives, let's say, in New York City, but commutes to New Jersey to work, they're eligible. That's what this means to me. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that's partially because people want to, I think the government wants people to get back to work too. I don't know if you guys saw, New York City, the Wall Street Journal released that the majority of the buildings that are in New York City and, they're probably not going to be used anymore. They're probably going to close down because everyone's going to be working from home. And I think people are at the point now where they're getting vaccinated, but are still comfortable working from home. And I think people have just gotten used to, I can only imagine how college students are feeling, but not just college students, but kids, right? Younger
Right.
kids who have been working from home, who are, just on Zoom all day with their friends in middle school or wherever. And they're used to writing stuff down, coloring, things, doing arts and crafts. And now
Right.
you're doing crafts on your iPad with a stylus pen. And it's just like, that's normal from them now. And I think it's going to be a huge, I think it's going to be a problem in the fall once everything goes back to normal, or what people
Yeah.
saying it's going to go back to normal, because people are so used to talking on a screen and people are used to,
Or lack thereof.
right. Yeah. And like some people have their cameras off. Like, I don't even know what some people look like anymore. It's true.
You just walk into an in-person class, like 6 people have hoods on just so
Yeah.
you can't see their face.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I for one do not like all the Zoom classes, and having done it for over a year at this point, I can't wait to get back into the person. But I think what we saw from like the start of this pandemic is how many people, like in more of a working sense, not a school sense, but how many people can work from home, like how unnecessary it is for a lot of people to physically go to an office when they can literally do everything from home.
Right.
Like you can do the meeting, like the 1 or 2 meetings you have in a day or a week through Zoom. But if you can get all your work done from home, I think a lot of people now are going to go, well, I don't need to waste like the gas mileage or anything. If I'm not missing anything being in the office, there's no reason for me to be there. And I think when we do get back to that sense of normal, there's going to be a lot of people saying, well, yeah, I'm not scared about COVID anymore, but what's the sense of going in? I got everything right here.
Right. I also kind of miss though the adrenaline rush you would get like when you had to go to work at like 7 in the morning, or go to on the class in the morning, like going into that Starbucks
Adrenaline?
line. Oh no, it's just like, when you're leaving, let's say you have to go to work at like 8:45 and you just leave your house now. You need your morning cup of coffee. I know I do, right? And
Yeah.
like you have to wait in the Starbucks line. People are all getting like, tense in the morning. I kind of miss that atmosphere in a way, because now I walk into a Starbucks and it's kind of depressing, because it's like
Yeah.
sometimes the door is just closed, like they just bring it right there, like a curbside pickup type of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm the type of person that likes going into a coffee shop or someplace, up on Pond used to be a really good place, like Cafe Diem, for those who, remember that. That used to be a good place to go study, but now it's so limited because seats are closed off and like a lot of study options are limited now. So that aspect I'm really looking forward to when things start opening up again. But that's just the type of person I am. I do not miss the parking though on campus. That's
Yeah.
It's expensive though. Like I go to Wawa all the time. You can get like a iced coffee for like $2.
Oh well, Wawa is great in that regards. If
Yeah.
you're
I mean, I'm gonna say I missed this, but like I was already done with this before the pandemic hit. But I missed my morning commute to school. Like I'm somebody who likes to be punctual and unnecessarily early. So I would leave my house when I went to college, when I went to community college, when I was in high school. Don't think about it too much. But I used to leave my house earlier than it would normally take to get there. And I would just like, enjoy the ride there. I would have music, especially more like around this time, like that midpoint between winter and summer where the timing is off, where it's not pitch black outside at this time, or not this time, but like 6:37-ish, where it's not pitch black, but the sun is like just rising. That's like my favorite time to drive and just like go somewhere. Obviously I didn't like arriving at school, but I like that drive.
right.
And I miss that. Obviously, it's been a while since I've done that because I used to live on campus when we were allowed there. But even still, just walking to class around that period of time was just a nice, refreshing feeling. Like to get that fresh air from the early morning.
that nice little Montclair wind when it's,
Oh,
you know,
just little?
just a little bit, you know, just a little bit. The skyline was beautiful today. I just have to say, when I was walking over here, the skyline was nice. You were talking about the sky, and the
Yeah.
skyline was absolutely beautiful. So that's definitely something I miss, you know, like walking to with like my friends who aren't on campus anymore. You know, it's just like now I like FaceTime them. I'm like, look what you're missing out on, you know.
Well,
It's-
hopefully next semester.
yeah.
Do you guys like use like the parkway to like come up here? Because like I'm kind of like trying to find like that more like peaceful ride that you're talking about. Because like
What-
everybody like, because like first of all, you know, in the cardinal rule of New Jersey driving is you're supposed to go 15 miles above the speed limit, and I don't, because like there's a lot of cars around me, so everybody kind of gets mad at me, and
As they should. No, I'm kidding.
No, I'm with him. I go like the speed limit and sometimes 5 under.
It's, you know,
It's
I
bad.
think what's more peaceful than the New Jersey Garden State Parkway, Thomas? That,
Literally anything else.
well, I live in Central Jersey, as does Thomas, and I think what's worse than the Garden State Parkway is 287. 287 is the worst highway. It's the worst. It is. I don't know if you guys have ever been on 287. I know Thomas could probably oblige to this, but it's
I'm horrible with
287 is down-
directions, so I would have no idea what you're talking about.
is that when you go past Route 1 Edison and then you go towards Woodbridge? I think that's it.
yes, exactly. And
Oh,
it's
that
just
is
like
okay.
it goes to like Somerset. Sometimes it's in you know, the area of like East Hanover, things like that. It is awful. Don't take my word for it. Actually go on 287. Go for it, Kyle. Go for it.
I gotta find it first.
No, yeah, really, just you will. I mean, depending on where you live, it's just like I think we can go on an everlasting battle of what New Jersey road is like the worst or what's the best. I never heard anyone say like, you know, what is the my favorite New Jersey highway is blank. Route 1 is a classic too.
I'm very particular of Route 9, if I'm going to be honest. Probably the best one out there.
I actually live right by Route 9, but you know,
Same here.
I can attest.
I mean,
So-
it's not Route 9's not too bad.
Yeah, because like I said, considering all the other ones that we have to
Yeah.
choose from, might as well, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Yeah.
We
But
could-
go ahead. Sorry.
no, you go for it. You
Nope,
go
you're
for
the
it.
one in the studio. I've been talking this whole time.
There we go. So we are going to take a quick break, but we will be back. And again, you're listening to WMSC Upper Montclair.
Hey, you're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, where music stays cool. Cooler than a dog on a skateboard. Okay, I take that back, but we're still pretty cool.
Welcome back again. You are listening to the Monday edition of the Morning Buzz here on WMSC Upper Montclair. I'm Ryan Breyta here in the studio, along with Kyle Pepitone and Thomas Tarter from the Zoom land.
Hello.
Hi guys.
So we talked a lot about COVID earlier on in the show, but now we have to talk about another serious issue regarding shootings in the country today. I mean, I feel like I wake up every day and there's another shooting that's happening. But yesterday there was a suspect on the run in fatal shooting of 3 in Texas. A manhunt occurred on Sunday for former sheriff's deputy Stephen Broderick, wanted in the fatal shooting of 3 people in Austin, Texas. People in the area were told to shelter in place and call their neighbors to check on them because of the shooting. And honestly, because of the pandemic, I'm sure that already happened so much. Austin Police Chief Joseph Kakun said that those who live near the area where the shooting that took place late Sunday morning no longer had the shelter in place, but they should remain vigilant about the shooter on the loose. And the shooter, again, was a former sheriff's deputy. It's just, at this point, I said this last week too, when we talked about the police brutality story. I'm not even shocked anymore when a shooting happens or it is announced, because it's just like a common occurrence in the country now. And it's just, what else needs to, I don't know.
I would agree with you. I don't like it being considered a common occurrence.
Right.
That's so I don't even know, a dark, I guess, depressing. I don't have the right word, and I'm not sure a word exists to describe that.
Right.
Like to describe this specific scenario, it goes beyond words that I have in my vocabulary. But just hearing it being considered or categorized under common is so heart-wrenching and harrowing. And I'm at a loss for word. I don't know what to say because this happens a lot. And frankly, well, even one is way too much. It shouldn't even be one. But
Right.
to hear story after story, and this is a totally different story from the one that Thomas was talking about earlier about the FedEx shooting that happened, and they're so close together. It's just horrible to hear one after another. And
The part in this story that really got me was telling like the people in Austin to shelter in place and call their neighbors. I can't even imagine living in that area at the time of the shooting and being told like you have to stay inside and lock up. I feel like we're living in the purge at this point. And
it's scary out there. It's getting to be, not getting to be, but like you just hear something like this and it's just it's different. It's you don't expect it. Like everybody's under that impression of this can't happen to me.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have that mentality, but every time you hear this, you can't help but like feel bad for the people in that area. Like, thankfully this didn't happen in my area, but I can't imagine what these people have to deal with at this moment in time. It's terrifying, I'm sure. Like just thinking about that, I wouldn't even know what to do. I could not survive in a situation like that. The psychological aftermath of something like this that these people are going to have to go through is horrible.
and I forgot what I was going to say, but you said the psychological effect. A lot of people mentally from the pandemic as well it's affected a lot of people mentally, and like adding these occurrences to the country happening as a whole, I'm sure everyone's kind of just at a point where it's like, what's going to happen next? And
Texas has not had it easy this year, even earlier with the ice storm that just swept through the country, knocked out power, knocked out utilities.
right.
And I'm sure they're still trying to recover from that too.
I feel bad for Texas because it's just a whole other world that they're living in than what we're living in, right? And it's just, after the ice storm happened, we kind of just looked at it as saying, what's gonna happen next? And is everything gonna be considered like a new type of, are ice storms gonna happen more often in Texas now?
Right.
Are these, good? Thankfully, New Jersey has like strict gun laws, and they're becoming even more stricter from the state as a whole, right? But in Texas, it's like it's a whole other world down there, man. At the same point, in regards to COVID stuff, and then you have like Texas having like full capacity crowds for baseball games, but that's a whole other issue and topic. But
right. Yeah, it's very different from what we're going. I don't want to say what we're going through, but like you said, it's a different world. And to think about like it's a different way of life down there, to have that factor in to any story, like the ice storm. Like we hear ice storm, we're like, that's pretty bad, but we're not as affected by it because we're kind of prepared for something like that.
Right.
In New Jersey, they're not used to that. So you have to factor in that different way of life whenever you hear a story about anywhere not where you are.
Right. Thomas, did you have anything to add before we move on?
No, I was just saying off of what Kyle was saying, that the cold weather is more of like a regular occurrence here, kind of.
Right.
And we definitely in New Jersey, we definitely have more like background checks and stuff like that on guns, which could prevent mass shootings, but I think the hard part about the whole gun issue is finding that balance between like keeping everyone safe and like letting people giving people the ability to protect themselves in case they absolutely need gun ownership for.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a highly decisive topic that is talked about almost every year and every month in a way,
Yeah. I mean, like stories like this always bring it up, and you always see I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but you see people from different walks of life every time you hear a story like this. Like the FedEx guy, he got them legally. He didn't acquire them through any illegal means. He bought the guns legally, and still something bad happened. This was a former sheriff, you said, and obviously, usually sheriffs have that stuff at their disposal, and still something bad happened. So it really is a decisive and uneven waters that you have to tread when bringing something like this up, like the issue of gun control.
You just gotta, continue to hope for new measures to be made, whether it's like for mental health resources or things in that regard to try and end the madness in a way. Ever since the school shooting and the Parkland shooting in 2017, for me at least, the whole way the country felt about gun violence really changed in a way. But we're still pushing for that change. We're still pushing for not having to be afraid to go out.
Right.
Not just from COVID now, but even getting worried to see if you're going to go to school and you're going to make it the next day.
Right.
But moving on now, the closing arguments in Derek Chauvin's trial are set to begin today. Closing arguments are set to begin in Derek Chauvin trial as both sides rested their cases. Chauvin faces 3 charges: second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter for kneeling on the neck of George Floyd for more than 9 minutes. One man, Ferries Morrison, said if Chauvin wasn't convicted, there will be unrest around the country, saying, quote, "It will explode." Continuing on, he said, "It won't riot, it will explode. It will be a revolt." I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't concerned for the country if the trial does not go in a way where Chauvin is convicted, for the sole purpose of there will be even more unrest than there was in June and May. There will be even more. I'm also the town of. I was reading a New York Times article about this, and Minneapolis as a whole has been through a lot of damage. You have, buildings, owners of small businesses that are scared to open their doors now again. And some of them had their, stores destroyed back in June when the outrest happened. And now we're at the point in that city where it's like, they don't know what is going to happen, whether it's burning things down or just the businesses and the people are just scared of what's to come. And to be honest with you, I do not blame them. Do I think that it is justified? I not supporting violence. I'm just saying the outcries would be justified considering the protests, right? Because of what happened. But there's a way where in the city where people are going about it, where it's like protesting peacefully. That's going to be talked about a lot, and it's going to be very talked about topic and must watch thing to keep an eye on,
Yeah. I mean, it just does, like, to me, like, this, obviously, if he's not convicted, I have no doubt that something will explode. And we do have to say this before we get any further into this, but any of our opinions are not reflections of those of the station or anything of the station. Our opinions are our own and are not endorsed or condemned. No, not condemned. I forget the word, but our opinions are our own, not the station's. That's the short of it. But like I said, I have no doubt that of what Morrison said. If this man is not convicted, something's going down. But if you think about it, it's not gonna target the right place. Like if there is, say, a violent protest or a revolt, as Morrison said, it's not they're gonna attack more businesses, people who had no bearing or control in any of this, and they're just gonna destroy these people's lives. To what exactly? How is that going to make a point?
I think at the same time, the argument is they are destroying other people's property, but in the same sense, a person was actually destroyed. And they're just tired of being, I can't even imagine how being a person of color in this country is, it's the fact that you have to wake up every day and say, okay, I have to do what I have to do. I have to say, I have to do anything I could do so I can survive something like George Floyd went through. Right. And it's just the tiredness. And we saw it in the summer, right? We saw in the summer the amount of people who protested. We had people in France protesting for what was happening in the country, right? And it was just, I think it was the tiredness of what has been happening, to whether it's Black Americans or other people of color, Hispanics, Asian Americans now. It's just, I think the outrage is what gets people tired, and some people think that, causing damage speaks. That's what the argument was, whether it's on Twitter, some people tweet about that. And it just, the thing that bothered me the most in the summer, that it was turned into a political issue about what happened. We saw the former President Trump use what happened with George Floyd in the riots as an example. And we all saw what happened when, he had the whole Bible thing, the photo op, you know what I mean? And that's the only thing I'm worried about as well. It's a shame what could happen. But at the same time, the man could be away for a very long time, and that could be a celebration in a way for some. But it's definitely not, I'm not looking forward to it, to be honest with you, because I don't know I don't know what's going to happen. We all don't know. We all, have opinions on how we feel about it, but we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the jury's going to think.
I feel like no matter what happens, no matter what the outcome of this case is, it's not going to be pretty.
Right.
Like there's a few angles you can look at this from. He can get convicted, and for a majority, most people will say he got what he deserved, but you're going to have probably a group of people saying he probably should have gotten worse, and they're going to be unhappy. Obviously, if he doesn't get convicted, there's going to be a much larger of people who are unhappy with this. So no matter really how you look at this, no matter what happens, I think there's going to be some group of people who are going to be unhappy with whatever outcome comes out of this. And that's really just the way it is. Like, no matter what happens in this country, there's always a group of people unhappy with it.
Right.
And sometimes, yes, it is justified. Sometimes outcry or disagreement is justified for certain issues. But like, even a good thing can happen, and there will still be people angry about it. Like the vaccine, 50% of all people, 50% of all adults in the country got vaccinated. I'm sure somebody out there is sitting on their chair grumbling at the news right now because of that.
Grandpa Joe reading the papers in the morning.
It's just the way we are, but that's all I really have to say on this issue.
We just have to try to like prevent these kind of things from happening in the future, because he was we did this in my political science class. We were talking about police brutality, and there was like a whole database in New York City on instances of police misconduct and police abuse, and we just, I mean, it's just mind blowing to me that Derek Chauvin had 18 prior misconduct charges before this whole thing.
Right.
So I wanted to ask you guys, and especially Ryan, do you guys feel that there are any policies that can be passed to prevent things like this from happening in the future?
Well, it doesn't start with one person. It starts with the system as a whole. It doesn't, you could do all you want in regarding, policies, body cameras, things like that. An officer was wearing a body camera with Durante Wright. Look what happened there. Although it, from what they say, it was an accidental thing. Things still happen, right? A lot of it is, systematic issues that need to be done, whether it's the system at the whole or looking at the blue wall type of thing, right? There's a lot of, Trevor Noah posted something on social media the other day, and he said there's a lot of bad apples, but instead of saying there's a lot of bad apples, we have to start looking at a rotten tree. And the rotten tree is, he said, is the system. Not all, obviously, he said not all cops are bad. My brother is a police officer and he does great jobs. He does a great work in keeping the community safe. But there is an issue regarding speaking out against it in regards to the system. And that's what needs to be changed. And that's what needs to be, and a lot of police officers will tell you that, obviously not on the record, but they will tell you that that is an issue. But that's what I think needs to happen, Thomas.
Right. For one, I don't know too much about what to say. I don't know too much. I don't know much about political stuff that I can ever say this. I do know though that, I have police in my family. My uncle, and recently my cousin just graduated from police academy, and obviously you don't want to look at family members bad, and I don't think I do. I respect them and everything, and it's, yeah, like you said, there's a few bad apples, but overall, I think, a few bad apples are going to ruin it for everybody. But overall, I think most of them are there to do good. And the fact that everything is only focused, like news in general is always focused on the bad. So no matter what you hear, if you hear 18 bad things and one good things, you're always going to draw the conclusion that X is bad. But with that being said, I think there's a skewed perspective on anything that the news puts out, and that's where my opinion falls on this.
And wait, you were about to say something, Thomas?
No, I mean, I was just gonna say that, like, I think Montclair, like, here when we have like a lot of classes on like racial sensitivity, and we're, WMSC, we're doing our racial inclusion pieces. I think we're doing a great job, like, educating the public, being like a part of the media.
And that's what matters the most. Education's at the forefront. Focus Racial Justice is airing today, and there's a lot of stories there about, the system as a whole and what people went through. Being a part of producing stories for this Focus Racial Justice, there's a lot of education and getting to hear your people's stories of what they've experienced, whether they're old or even present, or even what they have been taught from their family about like what's been happening in their lives and how to go about certain things. So I think education is the most important part. And I think what people need to, if people want to make a change, you start off educating. And that's the most important thing. And that's the common factor. That's the thing that people have to look at the most, where do you want to get your information from? Always be open to change, always be open to new understandings, and be open to what someone goes through that we might not be able to go through. I think that's the most important aspect, along with, obviously change, but it starts with education. And that's the most important. So,
yeah. Information is definitely a powerful tool.
But I think moving on now, we do have some hot takes with Emma Coughlin. Emma, whenever you are ready. How are you?
Everyone. Good. How are you, Ryan?
Oh, living the dream, Emma.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. All right. So I got some great stuff for you guys this morning. So the ACM Awards last night, and that is the Academy of Country Music Awards. Excuse me. So this year's nomination list was much more diverse than it has been in the past, which is great. There were 4 Black country artists who were nominated this year, which is the most that there has ever been. Kane Brown was the only Black artist who won last night for his video Worldwide Beautiful. There was also a COVID vaccination PSA that aired last night. So it featured Eric Church, Darius Rucker, and Ashley McBryde, who are 3 country music artists. And it was it wasn't like get the vaccination. It wasn't very like in your face or anything, but it was just kind of like, we have to do our part to get back to normal. It was well done. And I actually have it pulled up so we can listen to it now. Just give me a minute to share my screen.
Yeah, because I know that before you play it, sorry, but one of the things that Dr. Fauci was talking about is having like sports figures and Hollywood stars advocating for the vaccine, like not, hey, you should go do this because I'm Beyonce, but more I'm Beyonce and I got vaccinated and you could too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, celebrities, musicians, sports, like they all have a lot of influence.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely important for, these people to speak up and say, this is what I'm doing, and hopefully can help other people along the way. But here is the video. Just give it 1 second to load.
I'll be seeing you all the old familiar places.
So I've thought a lot about what I missed the most during this pandemic. The thing that I miss the most is you.
I love playing to a live audience. There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like feeling the love that you guys give to us and we're trying to give to you. And I just can't wait to get back to that.
All these places that we stand in, the Ryman, Opry House, those places are just places if you don't put the people in them.
The COVID-19 vaccines are going to help us all get back to the moments we miss.
It's totally normal to have questions. I did too. That's why it's so important to get informed.
There's a lot of talk out there about the vaccines. So ask your doctor and get the facts. It's up to you.
It's a very good video. Now, Emma, for those of us who aren't watching through Facebook and could only have heard what they were saying, can you describe what was happening in the video? Who was there talking, and like what the atmosphere of the video was?
So it's Eric Church, Ashley McBryde, and Darius Rucker, and they are standing on the stage of the Opry and speaking to an empty theater, basically, which is really effective. I mean, that's definitely something that I've missed as somebody who loves music, is going to concerts and seeing performances, and I'm sure I am not the only one. So yeah, I think it was very effective, and it did address that, you are going to have questions, and that's completely normal, as Ashley McBryde said. So yeah, I think it's really well done. This is part of a national ad program campaign called It's Up to You, that just focuses on informing people about vaccinations and addressing vaccine hesitation. So we should be seeing more of these. So yeah, but this was the first big thing, and it aired last night during the ACMs, but I believe it's going out to other networks now. So yeah. So that's all good stuff. The other thing I wanted to talk about today was the phenomena of thrifting, which I'm sure you've all heard of. And this was something I thought of yesterday because it took weeks for me to be able to do this with some of my friends. We've been planning it forever. And we went into Philadelphia yesterday and went to this place called Philly AIDS Thrift, which is a huge store, and all of the money that you spend is donated to HIV research. And it's a really cool place. We had a lot of fun. But I've kind of been thinking a little bit about thrifting too, and I've discussed this with a few of my friends as well, is it just sort of, I don't know, sometimes it can, the word I suppose I'm trying to say is gentrification. We've somewhat gentrified thrifting because it is something that people need to survive. you go to a Goodwill and there's obviously people who are there because they need to be there. That's where they get their clothes and their furniture and their entertainment. And then there's, random groups of like middle school aged kids like walking around, like going through the stuff, trying to find something cool, which is great because, they're not contributing to the fast fashion industry, which is hurting the environment. But at the same time, it feels a little bit off to me. Like we're sort of exploiting this thing that people need. So obviously not all places that you thrift at are like this. I mean, Philly AIDS Thrift is definitely geared more towards like the wealthier side of Philadelphia. I mean, prices can range. They have cheaper stuff. I loved the $1 room in the back. Like that was my place to go. But there were some pretty expensive items there. And obviously, it is still a charity because it's donating to HIV research, which was one of the reasons that I decided to go there as opposed to other places. And like small business consignment shops, that's another thing because they're usually kind of pricier, but you're still not contributing to fast fashion. But Goodwill, I think, like, and this is just my personal opinion, but maybe try and stay away from that just because, people need the stuff there because it is cheaper and it's easier to afford. So I don't know. But I started thinking about this because of Thrift Con, which is it's like Comic Con, but for thrifting. And it's being held on April 25th in Denver. And people basically can buy a ticket to go to Denver and just spend a weekend like going through vintage clothes. And that just seemed a little bit much to me. It seems a little intense. And the tickets are actually sold out, so it's pretty popular. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I've never heard of something like that, and I, for one, am glad that I first heard. Well, I knew what thrifting was, but this whole thrift con thing, I'm glad that I first heard it here on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. But that's a very interesting thing, actually, because I didn't know too much about it. And I mean, it sounds very interesting from the way you described it. I mean, to have a whole convention is really weird, actually. If I'm going to be honest, having a convention for this just doesn't fit into my preconceived notion of what a convention is. But the more I think about it, the more it actually does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense. I guess it's interesting to me how much this is blown up, and obviously a lot of that is because of TikTok. And I know like apps and websites like Depop have become really popular too, which like that's all fine. Because again, it's not really, hurting people who like need cheaper clothing because Depop is really expensive. And it's helping people, sell their old clothes, which is actually really great. I mean, I think thrifting is great. I just think you have to be careful about where you do it.
Right. Well, thank you, Emma. That's a really cool. Thrifting's honestly really interesting because it's either hit or miss, in my opinion. Because I go to the thrift store most of the times and I get nothing because I don't like anything there. But it's okay. Maybe I have to find a new spot. Maybe I have to go to this place in Philly, like you mentioned. But thank you all so much for joining us for Monday's edition of the Morning Buzz. We hope to see you again next week for another Monday edition. But I've been Ryan Breyta along with
Kyle Pepitone
and Tom Stewart
and Emma Coughlin.
Thank you all again for joining us, and I hope you all stay safe and well. Have a good week, everyone.